Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
This weekend is a pretty significant one for Europe. There's a presidential vote in Austria. The far-right populist Norbert Hofer is the bookies' favourite. It's not the most powerful job in the country, but nor is it simply about opening art galleries. If elected, Hofer would be the first European head of state of that persuasion since World War II. That's big, but Italy is even bigger. A referendum on a reform of the constitution. It's designed to remove political paralysis by massively weakening the Senate and stop it being directly elected. The Prime Minister, Matteo Renzi, is on the side of reform and has said he'll resign if he loses. But against him is the populist Five Star movement, and some non-populists too, in fact. But it matters because Italy is one of the big four nations of the EU and has a precarious place in the Eurozone with a dangerously fragile banking system. Political and potential economic instability are not what the EU establishment wants right now. Well, Gabriel Gatehouse has been in the country ahead of the vote on Sunday.
Buonasera a tutti. Dicendo che vengono dal partito di Berlinguer, arrostendo la salamela alle feste dell'unità, sono ipocriti, è l'ipocrisia che ci ha distrutto.
The story of Rome's ruin, wrote the historian Edward Gibbon, is simple and obvious. It probably didn't feel that way to live through the bruising years of its decline, when the old order was suddenly no longer set in stone. Today, Europe is entering another period of uncertainty, and Italy could be the next pillar to fall. On the outskirts of Florence, they're building an underground high-speed railway line. The new station, designed by British architect Norman Foster, was supposed to open this month. But there's a problem. Many problems, in fact.
A un certo punto le opere diventano economicamente insostenibili. E questo è il problema.
So the cost is mounting up and up because of the delays, and so it's unsustainable and it's not working. Okay. These people are campaigning against the new line. They're part of the Five Star movement, a new populist party sweeping Italian politics. So they're starting work on a building site for a station that might well not be built, for a tunnel that also probably won't be built.
Esatto.
Exactly, right. Okay.
Esatto.
Costs so far €250 million. Florence's tunnel to nowhere is a metaphor for Italy's sclerotic, paralysed, wasteful politics. The referendum on the constitution is supposed to change all of that, to drag Italian politics into the 21st century. At an upmarket shopping centre in Florence, we went to an event for the Yes campaign. There weren't many undecideds among the Prosecco and the nibbles, and many here are worried that a once-in-a-generation opportunity for constitutional reform is being swept away on a wave of anti-establishment feeling.
People choose Barabbas. Do you know?
Barabbas, right. It's from the biblical story of,
Yes.
of Pontius Pilate and Christ on the cross.
Between Jesus and Barabbas, people choose Barabbas.
So you think the people always make the wrong choice?
Yes.
The Interior Minister, no less, was on hand to enumerate the benefits of reform. A slimmed-down second chamber, more power for central government, making it easier to get things done. Do you feel like you persuaded the anti-establishment voters here today?
Io credo che chi vuole veramente cambiare, e quindi anche il voto anti-establishment, può trovare in questa riforma la occasione per cambiare anche per coloro che non sono sostenitori dei partiti della maggioranza e del governo.
While the government deploys wine and cheese in its quest for a yes vote,
Dal partito di Berlinguer, arrostendo la salamella alle feste dell'unità, sono ipocriti, è l'ipocrisia che ci ha distrutto.
the no campaign is using more traditional methods. What they're talking about on stage is not so much the finer points of the Constitution, but things much more fundamental. They're talking about jobs and they're talking about the banks. The Five-Star Movement has recast the vote on Sunday as a broader referendum on the government and on the European status quo.
We are fighting against a system, a very strong system. They control, the Democratic Party control almost all the network of television, almost all the newspaper. We are here in the squares, down the street, fighting for the democracy.
This message of insurgency resonates with people whose incomes haven't gone up in 20 years in a country where over a third of young people are unemployed.
In Italy we need some changing, but not this kind of changing that the government decide to do.
Right.
Because we need not to change our legislation. No.
What do you want to change?
We want to change everything. Because,
Everything?
Yeah, because everything in Italy doesn't work.
Five Stars celebrated the election of Donald Trump as a giant two fingers up to the establishment. They want to hold a different referendum. And here's where things start to sound very familiar.
È un referendum che va a sancire quello che vuole essere il paese Italia, se vuole essere un paese servo dell'Europa o se vuole essere un paese ancora sovrano. Quindi sì, è un momento fondamentale della storia italiana. Abbiamo una classe politica che si vuole consegnare mani e piedi a un'Europa, alle banche, a una finanza e abbiamo una buona parte del popolo che vuole mantenere la propria sovranità.
Politics in Italy has always been a turbulent business. Since the founding of the post-war republic, there have been more than 60 governments under 27 different prime ministers.
I think that what we have seen is a situation in which the system was blocked for a very long time, for decades. And then after the crisis, the financial crisis, there has been a collapse of the economy. And the sense has been that the political class did not really respond to the necessities of the people. So I think that this has generated the arrival of the Five-Star Movement, which is really has channeled all the sense of protest coming both from the right and from the left.
In Italy, as elsewhere, issues that are specific and local are now coalescing into a sense of a wider pan-European malaise. They signed the Treaty of Rome in this building here, the founding document of what would become the European Union. And here's how it could all begin to unravel. Let's say Italy votes no in the referendum. The Prime Minister, as he's promised, would resign, and if they can't agree on a caretaker government, they'll hold early elections. Let's say in those early elections, the Five-Star Movement gets the largest share of the vote, and they have pledged to hold another referendum, this time on membership of the euro. In Florence, the local boxing club has signed up to the Yes campaign. It's a place of abundant metaphors for a continent facing multiple rounds of populist knockabout. The club's president, himself a former fighter, is telling anyone who'll listen that when it comes to Europe, Italy must not throw in the towel.
Si parla proprio del futuro dell'Italia anche come credibilità, perché se oggi noi falliamo questo referendum e vince il no, per l'Europa sarà la dimostrazione che in Italia non si può cambiare.
And lots of people are looking at Europe and thinking it's part of globalization and that's a bad thing.
Sì, c'è una parte di ragione a pensare questo perché la globalizzazione ha degli aspetti positivi ma ne ha tanti anche di negativi. Però la globalizzazione non si ferma né con il sì né con il no, la globalizzazione non la ferma nessuno, bisogna solo gestirla la globalizzazione se questo è possibile.
But here's the irony. Just as Europe's political mainstream has recognized the need for change, many have lost faith in their ability to deliver it.
Gabriel Gatehouse there in Italy. In France this evening, President Hollande announced that he will not be seeking re-election. He wouldn't have been re-elected, but it is another sign of incumbents being pushed aside. So let's talk about the trend and where it ends, and we'll focus on Italy, at least for the beginning. I'm joined by the Labour peer, Lord Glassman, who has lived in Italy, worked there. He made the case for leave in the referendum here. And Mina Zinga-Riello, the UK coordinator of the Italian Referendum's Yes campaign. There are up to 500,000 Italians in the UK, and they do get a vote. Maurice Glassman, which side are you on in this referendum?
Well, on the question of this particular referendum, which is constitutional reform, it would be, arrogant to have a view. What I'm quite persuaded of is that Renzi made a massive mistake by saying that he would resign if he lost, and by doing that, he politicised this vote and gave people an opportunity to kick the government, which I'm sure they'd take.
But you kind of see where people are coming from, and we heard it in the piece there. We don't just want to fiddle with the constitution. We want to change the whole kind of the whole structure.
My sense of being in Italy and talking to Italians is there's an overwhelming sense of demoralisation about what's happened to the country. They've done their Trump thing. They had the Berlusconi period, and then they had a technocratic government imposed by the EU. And this is the country that gave us Machiavelli and the discourses. They gave us city-states and city democracy. And they're wondering, where's the democracy in all of this? Yeah. So that's the overwhelming sense.
Mina, for you, is it a vote about the Constitution? No, it's a vote about keeping in place the structures of power that are in there now, isn't it?
It is a vote about the constitutions, and, the vote is not, it's true, we made a mistake, we personalized the referendum, we acknowledge that. Matteo Renzi apologized for that. It is about the constitution, it's about how Italy is seen by the outside, and it's about how Italians see themselves and we see ourselves. So it is about the way we work as a society and as a system, and it's about our political culture.
Right. Well, look, I don't want to get into an argument about the Italian constitution, so let's talk about the consequences of this. And what you appear to have going on are these chain reactions of one thing in one place, it's sort of invigorating something else somewhere else. Just take me through what you think happens. Let's suppose it's a no. Five Star Movement, can they win an early election?
So there won't be an election until there is an electoral law, and we have to get an electoral law first because we don't have one at the moment. So there will be a technical...
Yes, Italy.
There will be a technical government that probably will transition the parliament towards through a new electoral law, and only after there will be. Right.
But can you see Beppe Grillo becoming Prime Minister of Italy
He's not able to become Prime Minister, but Movement 5 Stars might, if
and he can't,
is a no.
Because
he was convicted for a felony, so he's not. He won't be able to.
How serious is it for you? Take me through the chain of reactions. Do you see there's an economic crisis deriving out of a no vote or is that just Project Fear Italian style?
Yeah, this is an enormous fuss over the referendum, but Italy has fundamental problems and issues that are engaging people. It used to have a very solid Christian Democrat and Communist Party bloc. I mean, I remember from my youth, Berlinguer and Aldo Moro and the historic compromise. This was really intense and very interesting ways. They had really strong pro-worker legislation. They had very strong democratic cities. And then the Christian Democrats, Andreotti, they had great stability. Every government I ever knew until I was about 45 had Andreotti in it. He was a permanent feature. And it wasn't an unstable political system. But what happened was there was the disintegration of the Communist Party, then the corruption and the disintegration of the Christian Democrats. And you have Renzi, who's an absolutely technocratic figure against this five-star. You can see the degeneration.
Passion against
but also, there's a huge issue of immigrants arriving, which is very disruptive in a stable society. And what does the politics do to protect the people? And that's the big question.
But you've spelled out the problem, but where does it go and where does it stop? What's your sort of nightmare? What's your fear for Italy?
First of all, there's not a big migration problem. Okay. It's 62 million people, 300,000 people arrived last year. That's not a big problem. That's something that a country like Italy and any European country should be able to deal with.
Sure.
Second, we have had 63 governments in 70 years. Sure, the Prime Minister was always the same person, but it's still 63 governments in 70 years.
The point isn't the point you're making may or may not be right, but the point is they don't appear to be cutting through with the public.
It doesn't, because there's a big sense of frustration. Yeah. We're coming from a very big and deep financial crisis that's created a domino effect. It's transformed into a political and then into an institutional crisis. People are frustrated. They're right to be frustrated. We need to be able to provide political solutions, policies, not just food for anger. Food for anger.
I still want to get to how bad this is for the European Union. So Italy's going to be in discussions with itself for the next few months if it votes no. What happens in the EU? Does this invigorate other countries, the Netherlands and France, to vote for the more extremes, or do the others look at Italy, which will be probably slightly unstable, and they say, you know what, we actually think this is a time to play it safe and we'll go with the safer candidates? And which way do you think it goes over the next few months elsewhere?
Well, I think we'll fit into a general sense of disenchantment and powerlessness. I don't think any other country is going to particularly take a lead from this, but what you have in Italy is definitely shared in other countries, a sense that the democratic system is not functioning, that the EU is remote and technocratic, and that there's very little. I mean, Italy used to be able to function in those days of 70 or 63 governments with the same people in it every time. It could devalue, it could take steps to support the export industry. It has none of those abilities now, and this is weighing very heavily on Italy.
What, Mina, do you think the EU can do to kind of quell this populist discontent? What would be the one thing that they can do?
I think the EU needs to stop being austerity-driven and needs to be focusing on policies for people again. The answer has to be political. It can be populist.
But austerity in the euro kind of, you're in a thing with the Germans. It's actually really difficult. I mean, you've got your legs tied together.
And Mario Monti is running the central bank, European Central Bank. I mean, this is where we are.
Draghi, yeah.
And we're very proud of it. And I don't think, I think there's a space for anti-austerity in this European Union, and I think Italy can actually be the lead for that if we win the referendum.
Mina, Lord Glasson, thank you both very much.
Thank you.